Well, I've had to change my battery concepts a little bit. I have gone away from the lead acid because I was having a whole heap of trouble with them. Well, it's really hard to see this. Oh, there we go. And I've gone for 200 Ah lithium ions. I'm just getting them all to 13.5 so that I can link them in parallel and do some resistance checks and make sure that they fit the bill properly. But they overcharge real quick. So I've just very quickly hooked up my backup rigger motor so that I can try and pump that charge down. Should drop relatively quickly with this thing on full speed. Pretty cool little one. It says that it does like 8 kilometers an hour max or something like that. So I figured it would make a really, really good backup for the houseboat because that's as fast as a houseboat can go anyway. And I'm not expecting this thing to move it even that quickly really, but just having an electric backup that you can chuck straight onto the 12 volt is going to be pretty damn useful. And I also thought it would be kind of fun to have for making some water vessels and being able to motorize them real easily, because I can just make a backpack with a smaller 12 volt in it, have it plugged straight onto that, and then this thing can attach to whatever the hell I feel like playing with, really. Yeah, just a quick little change. So when that one's pumped down to 13.5 and I've got them all even, I'll leave it for another 2 hours, make sure that they're actually all sitting on the same charge level. Then I'll link them in parallel, test them, and I'll pop the inverter on it after I've done the resistance checks, and I'll actually put some load on. I think what I'll probably do is in my main living area, I'll do my computer, the fridge, the lights, and my air fryer, and just, give it a bash. See how much the batteries drop, see if they drop in sync, see if any problems arise, because it would be really nice to have all of those niggly little bits and bobs sort of figured out before I'm down there. And I'm also thinking, so because these batteries have got these terminals all at one end, and they're quite tall, not heaps tall, but they're really long. I was actually thinking that these would fit extremely well under the bunk beds, and then I've got an excuse to leave the bunk beds in place, and I've got some spare beds, and I can sort of rethink the layout, that I'm going to change it up a little bit more. I'm actually thinking I'm going to keep the bathroom where it is, but just cut the door out of it. I think what I'll do is I'll chuck some loose plans up in a short video relatively soon, just to sort of show the changes that I'm thinking of. And I've been thinking more and more about that deck and the way that crappy composite decking material is degrading so badly from the sunlight and everything. And I kind of wouldn't mind mucking around with my own composite, but doing it with the pallet planks. So, I work with pallet wood all the time, and you can do some cool stuff to make it quite sturdy. Like, I'm pumping out a couple of things at the moment. I've got that framework and bench, which you put one of those things on the back of that and it becomes a room divider, and it's also a nice seat, and that gap there is where you pick it up from, and you can put some of that fluffy stuff down that gap to make it look a little bit more like a garden bed. Can't remember what it's called. I think it's just coco coir, something similar to coco coir. Yeah, living in the city, I can just pick up pallets here, there, and everywhere. All the businesses just chuck them out, and occasionally come across like a little bit of builder's board or something like that. So yeah, I'm also doing a really tall planter. This is going to be 105 centimeters tall, fully enclosed, and I'm going to seal the inside of it with my liquid styrofoam. So I've got styrofoam liquefied in acetone, and I'm going to try my hand at painting the whole inside of this structure, except for that tiny little gap down the center, which I'm hoping won't get water sealed shut because I want that to be the release point for watering the plants that sit inside this planter box. But if I can get the whole inside waterproofed with the styrofoam plastic and then do the standard staining and stuff on the outside for the weatherproofing, yeah, I think it'll last an extremely long time. So it's going to be a bamboo planter. That's why it's quite tall, so that it makes like a really nice divider over the edge of a fence. Yeah, I did it out of bits and bobs that I've got left over. But this is the kind of reclaimed work that I'm really getting into. And what I was doing was I was putting the styrofoam over top of just like little blocks, and it was increasing their strength tenfold. So it's making me want to do something similar on the deck of the boat. Do some sort of pallet wood composite, whether either like an epoxy or maybe a mix of the plastics that I got to work with my battery, something like that. I don't know. I've got a few different ideas how to go about it. How are we looking here? Wow, that did actually overcharge like crazy. I thought it was giving me a false reading, but it was actually sitting at 13.9. It's so weird. This little 4 amp charger, it's taken over a week to get them all to this charge point. And then all of a sudden, when they're all sitting at like 13.4, they immediately jumped up, like the one on the very end jumped up to like 14 volts before I recognized it. And it did it in a very, very short window, which was bizarre because the whole time, this whole week that I've been charging it, it's felt like they're never going to get to full. And then over this weekend, they're all like individually getting to like an overcharge status, and I'm having to pump power out of them to get them back to a proper fully charged state. So I don't know if that's because they're like slightly cheap, which they are, because you know it's what is it? I think each battery is 2,000. Hang on, I'll just show you. So they're 12.8 volt, 2560 watt hour, 200 AH. So resistance wise, they're supposed to sit at 200 AH at 13.5 volts, hence me getting them all up to that. And from what I've read about lithium ion batteries, the main way that they differ from lead acid is you don't necessarily have to worry about how you wire them for their charge and discharge, as long as they are all at an equal charge when you link them together. If I'm wrong, please someone tell me, because that's what I'm planning on doing. I'm planning on doing basic parallel with each battery charged to the same level. And then I'll put the charge terminals on one end and the outlet on the other. And because the bank should be in full sync with each other, being on the same charge level, I don't think that needs to be any more complicated than that. But please, if you know better than me, or if you've got some advice for me on what would be an appropriate way to wire it up, let me know. Keep in mind that the 4,000 watt inverter I've got for my 240 volt power conversion does have a built-in amp. So does the solar charge controller. So before the power goes into the batteries, oh, don't mind my hand, I had to get Ping a collar and brace and all that sort of stuff, because I want to start bringing her up to the boat with me. I hate leaving her here, and it means I can only stay at the boat for short periods of time. Anyway, I made the stupid decision after getting it on her without any hassle or fuss. I did what I've never done before, and I held her by the back of the collar to hold her still for a second because I was going to try and put the lead on. And she went like cat whirlwind ballistic. What she's done to me, what you're seeing, that was less than a millisecond. It was just buzzsawed me. That one canes. She like got her claw into the edge of the skin on my nail and just tore up it, ripped it wide open. So this is the next day. I've cleaned it all up and that, and you can see it's all still pretty nasty. Anyway, that was a complete distraction. What was I saying? Batteries, inverters, amps. Yes, so all of the basic components for my basic power setup all have their own individual amps that are replaceable in them. So if the solar charge controller goes, I got a 100 amp solar charge controller, so geez, I'd have to be doing something pretty seriously wrong to blow that one up. And the inverter, I think, is a 20 amp and a 10, maybe, no, actually, I think it's 10 amp fuses, and I think there's multiple fuses because there's multiple sockets on the inverter. And I'm pretty damn sure that each socket has got its own fuse, and that's why you don't need to worry about doing like a complicated fuse box. I would love to talk to someone about the existing electrical setup in it, and whether it's worth trying to retain that fuse box and whatever those fuses are applied for. I don't know a huge amount about running with 12 volt. I'm guessing from the fact that most of the setups I've seen seem to have a lot of fail-safe fuses between each section, that using 12 volt direct is a little bit more volatile and a little bit more dangerous for the electronics potentially, and that's why you have to fuse. But if I'm not going to be using 12 volt for anything other than maybe the basic lighting and like the actual, like the boat functions, so the horns, the navigation lights, that's the other thing I'm really not 100% sure on yet, is do I keep the lead acid battery separate for the motor and keep that whole system separate and confined, and let the motor charge the battery as it does, and if I need to, I can tap into the house bank to charge it up a little bit further? Or do I do away with the lead acid completely and put the boat elements all into the house element as well, and reduce weight and simplify the setup a little bit? I kind of think that would be the smarter way to go, especially if I'm moving the electronics inside, which I'm going to. I'm clearly not going to have them on the back of the boat like they are at the moment. I'm actually thinking about doing a conversion of that cupboard. Sorry, I'm not there at the moment, and I'm really unorganized and just decided to catch this quickly while I had it in mind. But when you go through the side door into the boat, there's a linen cupboard. And what I was thinking is that linen cupboard is linked up to those bunk beds. So if I have these batteries with this diagnostic display at the end of the bunk beds, because there's two drawers under the bottom bunk, and I'm pretty damn sure dimensionally that these bad boys should fit within that if I remove the drawers. And if anything, I might need to raise the level of the bed up slightly to accommodate having some clearance for the wires and stuff. And then I was just thinking of using some of those 12 volt fans that he's got in place to create an airflow under the bed into that linen cupboard. And in the linen cupboard, I'll have the inverter, the charge controller. I'll pull all the lines in from, wind generators, solar and everything into that space as well. Now, the other thing I'll need to do is make sure that cupboard is ready to deal with any electrical fire sort of scenarios. So I want to set up sort of an automated dampening system in that space and change the material so that it's highly flame resistant and doesn't let too much heat escape unless it's through the vents that I'm going to put in place. So I'll have that whole section from the batteries to the inverters and the solar charge controllers. I'll have that really well ventilated straight out the side of the boat. And that should deal with any hot spots, that should deal with any fumes built up, that sort of thing. So I should even be able to run the generator from within that cupboard. So if I take up the bottom section of the cupboard with the wiring and the controllers mounted at the back, leaving the bottom floor space for a little bit of storage for maybe a small fuel container for the generator, or not sure yet, not important, rambling again. But I was also thinking, if I keep that all contained there and I move the bathroom door and wall off where it currently is, take the toilet out, take the sink out, take the current crappy shower out, and just make that whole space into a shower cubicle. So it's a really nice, comfortable space. And I'll move the toilet mechanism onto the other side of the wall, which is where I'll do the kitchen, and I'll actually use the toilet mechanism in the place and the black water tank to do the kitchen sink, because that's the only water you're not allowed to dump in the river, because it can have fatty deposits and oils and things like that that can't break down and can damage the environment. So, considering I'm going to do an organic toilet and eventually an incinerator toilet, I think it would make sense to repurpose that 12-volt pump and tank system to deal with the one thing that I'm not going to be able to deal with the setup that I have in mind. I'd love some ideas on a better way to go about it. I think probably the incinerator idea will deal with pretty much all refuse problems. Like, I'll be able to do some basic organic waste breakdown, but kind of, if I don't need the nutrients, which I'm not going to, I'm going to be literally floating on a soup of awesome water. So I think incineration just makes the most sense. I'm just so scared about designing a system like that to sit on a wooden boat. I'm going to have heat bricks. I'm going to have insulation. I'm going to have some really serious safety measures to like not just shut it down, but potentially even like eject it off of the dock, off of the boat or something, so that it doesn't melt it down. I don't know. I'm going to have a serious think about it. Again, if anyone has any suggestions or cool ideas on how I could incorporate a decent incineration system into the boat, and not just for biological waste, but for pretty much all waste that I can't either recycle or repurpose, that would be amazing. I was thinking I could do a vacuum system to a central kiln, right? So conceptually, I was thinking, if I get one of those kiln elements, can't remember what the material is at the moment, but they burn insanely hot. Like you pump a certain amount of watts into them and you can get like 1200 degrees or something. But all I need to get out of it, I think, is 800 or 850, which is the nominal rate for breaking down biological waste in a decent amount of time. So all those little toilet systems and the things that I was looking at, that it's just like a metal bowl with a radiant forge element over top of it that does exactly the same thing, heats it up to 800 degrees, and it only does, the area of the bowl, really. So it can deal with one or two pieces of business at the same time. But I would love to design a system that vacuumed the waste out. So, you do a similar setup to the current incinerator toilets. You'd put a piece of paper towel down over top of the closed bowl entry, but it's obviously far enough away from you that you're not going to be getting into your own business. And then when you hit the button, the doors open and the back pressure sucks the paper towel into the small tube and, encapsulates the matter at the same time, so that the walls don't get coated. So you wouldn't have to do as much maintenance. And then, pump it down into a larger holding chamber that's not necessarily just biological waste. It could be other things that I can't recycle or break down easily. Like, maybe like fish scales and fish bones and stuff like that, something like that. Once it gets to a nominal rate where it's worth pumping up the kiln element, and where there's solar or wind or something generating enough power to handle the task, then it goes off. And, it dedicates that task to a 3 or 4 hour window where there's always going to be some sun or some wind or some water power being generated. Because this is the other thing that I'm getting really stuck on mentally, is the washing machine. I don't use it very often now, really, in reality. But when I do use it, I use the wash and dry function altogether, because I can just set it, don't have to think about it. When I come back, my clothes are all ready to put away. But that can take 4 or 5 hours, and that's 2,000 to 2,300 watts, I think. So let's go 2,000. So, and let's say it has to run for 5 hours. So that's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So that's, is that 1,000 amp hours? I'm still not 100% sure on the electricity stuff. Some days I get it immediately, other days I'm sort of still second guessing myself on it. But essentially, I think that 5 hour run cycle at 2,000 or 2,300 watts would essentially run the battery bank almost dry. So I like with my 800 watt generator and the existing panels, so there's 3 190 watt panels, let's just say 600 watts for argument's sake. So 800 watts from petrol generator, 600 from solar. That wind generator I want to rip off, and I either want to convert it immediately into a hydro generator, or I was thinking, excuse me one sec, and I already opened this up and had a look. I've got this little under desk cycle. I've had it for freaking ever. And this plastic case just covers a basic flywheel, and it's got 3 large circles in it. Sorry, I won't do it right now because there's screws, so it'll take me a bit to take it off. And that just connects up to a tension band. So converting this little thing into a pedal-powered generator would be extremely friggin' easy and kind of fun. And, you know, another supplemental way that I can keep these bad boys charged. So if I do the existing solar, get it all hooked up, get that plugged into my new solar charge controller, get the wind generator off, turn it into a hydro generator. Like basically I just want to steal the coils and mechanisms out of it, make a 3D printed case, water seal that, and then just make it so that you can chuck it in the river in the current and it'll just perpetually generate a charge for you. And then I want to try just plugging it straight back into the wind charge controller, because it should work essentially the same way. So I don't think I need a different piece of tech to accomplish that either. Again, if anyone's got any thoughts on that, let me know. I know this is an extremely long ramble of a video, but I've sort of been a bit mindful of the fact that all I've really done is release one, and it didn't have a huge amount of info in it, other than my thoughts and findings and, you know, excitement in making the impulse jump into doing this. So I'm a week or so down the track now, and the realities are setting home massively. I'm unable to progress a lot of stuff because of the flooding. I got sent a picture from one of the other marina folk today, and the water's come up and completely covered over the rampway that goes to my boat. Like, it's that much higher. It's just crazy. So they're not willing to slip the boat. They're not willing to move the boat out into the work bay because the currents are crazy, and they just think it's too much of a risk. So I'm on long service leave for all of December, and so far I'm on a week in, and all I've been able to really do is plan, test, and, you know, work on some of the things that I've got here, plus finish off a few of my carpentry things. Again, if anyone has any suggestions on ways that I can start to get stuck in while the boat is kind of stuck, please let me know. I was thinking of going there for a couple of days this week and contacting Bunnings and seeing if they'd be willing to do like a little drop off. But again, without having it in the work bay and without being able to strip out all of those kitchen cabinets and stuff and, you know, do the rudimentary shell changes that I need to before I start putting systems in place, it's going to be difficult. I think all I should really focus on is just like making the thing as clean as I can possibly get it. Like, get up on the roof, get everything off of it, try and get the roof cavity like fumigated out a bit, like bring a few chemicals and stuff with me, vacuum. Like, I've already done vacuuming and basic cleaning and stuff, but man, there's some ancient detritus on that thing. I'm going to have to find out if there's a really good aluminium cleaner to see if that'll make the outside shine again, because the outside looks pretty crusty, and same with all the window frames. If anyone knows a good product, again, let me know. There's so many what ifs with all of this, and so many areas that I just don't know yet. Poor Ping. I'm going to try and catch her. She's just been running non-stop up and down the hallway ever since I put the collar on her. But she occasionally tries to lick it off, and I can't help but giggle my friggin' head off. It's one of the funniest things I've ever seen. I feel so cruel laughing at it. But like, what choice do I have? She's got to get used to wearing a collar because she needs to have identifying information on her, and I need to be able to start bloody transporting her around. Friggin' cats. Love her to death, but she is going to make this a challenge. And so far, this has been a fail completely. I bought this thing in the hopes that I might be able to cheekily get her on the bus to go up to Murray Bridge. But yeah, I've had absolutely I've had a hard enough time getting her used to just having a collar around her neck. You know, this is a rescue cat that came from a hoarder house that had like 40 psycho cats running feral and crazy. And I got her when she was 6 or 7 months old already. So, you know, she'd already had a good long stint being a slinky, sleek, black shadow that no one could touch or look at. And I forgot way too quickly that she is still very much that fight or flight, can take care of herself and has done from a very young age sort of thing. So her being domestic and loving and a part of my house, I forgot that so very quickly, but man, did she remind me. She reminded me with one stupid movement that I shouldn't have made on something that I can see is already freaking her the hell out. It's not too tight, like she's already pulled it off once and I'm loath to tighten it because I don't want it to be more uncomfortable for her. The dangly identification chip, she friggin' hated it. She was like chewing on it and clawing at it. So I've like tucked it in and bent it so that it's like hidden and not dangling and not in her face. I've done everything I can to make it as least sensory impacting as I can. But yeah, she's still hating it. She's not hating me, but she's hating it. Come on, love. Hi. Oh, I get a little ping noise. That's about it. I hope you guys caught that because I haven't really caught the sonar. She doesn't meow. She just goes, prod. I can't even mimic it properly. But yeah, she is my sonar. You doing all right, Ping? Hey? You all right? Yeah, she is annoyed at me. Anytime she's annoyed at me, she'll give me a little acknowledgement ping, and then she'll piss bolt away from me. And I've got her toys all over the place because I've been trying to entice her to play. She is playing, she's being loving, but she still friggin' hates it. Anyway, thank you for listening to me ramble. I appreciate it. And if any of the things I touched on are things that you know about, things that you're interested in, if you have any advice on me, if you want to tell me I'm crazy and I haven't planned anything properly, then 1, I'll agree with you. 2, I'll probably laugh. And 3, thank you very much for taking the time to comment. I'll try and put something out again. I'm not going to set any agenda or anything yet. So many things are up in the air, and you know, I thought I was going to be able to jump straight into getting onto this thing and you know, capturing footage, doing it up and montaging some cool changes and alterations and stuff like that. But that has not been how it's worked out. So I'm not sure if I should put the whole YouTube concept on hold or if I should just keep doing little short updates and stuff until I am ready to rock and roll at that point. Yeah, I'm really undecided. So again, if you've got an opinion on that, I'm all ears. Thanks a lot, folks. Talk to you soon.